Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here from Team Wilpers. Excited as always to welcome you to our Week 8 and final athlete briefing here for our Summer Run Challenge 2024. Per usual, we'll start with a quick Week 7 review here. So we started the week with that tempo run, had big, nice blocks of marathon pace. The pace sometimes here is complicated by the warm weather that we're having kind of across the country at the moment. But all in all, this workout hopefully feels pretty darn cruisy. We're talking about a pace that's... Okay, athletes, we're on an interesting trek today. Find myself up in upstate New York here for the Ironman weekend. Kind of coming in and out of signal in this very old house. So Team Wilpers representing at a Muscleman 70.3 this weekend. Hopefully we can find some internet here somewhere in this home. So, just talking about that tempo run. Big, long chunks of marathon pace time. Hopefully feeling very nice and cruisy. Something we can maintain for hours on end when well trained for the marathon. Then we're moving into our interval run workout there. So we're continuing to use those mixed speed intervals, working on some of our higher zones. So we're talking obviously VO2 max. We're talking about anaerobic capacity. So we're stringing together a couple of those VO2 max workouts there, followed by the short, hard things to close out our final kind of really big push workout here. There's a ton of efficiency to be found in these workouts, both for short distance runners as well as people who are kind of a little bit more long endurance race focused. Finishing the week, of course, with our endurance run. Always the best way to finish out a week. Little bit of housekeeping. Our now end of summer challenge starts August 5th. So we're very creative in naming. We're moving from summer challenge to end of summer challenge 2 weeks after the conclusion of this, August 5th. So we'll give you 14 days to pursue all your fun, exciting things that you've been looking forward to outside of this 8 weeks. But then we're right back in the summer challenge. We'll be moving away from a little bit of these high intensity intervals. So away from some of the VO2 max, away from some of the anaerobic capacity intervals. And we're going to be thinking about things that are a little bit more endurance focused. As we come to the conclusion here of summer, I start to think about half marathons. I start to think about 10Ks. I think about 15Ks marathons, etc., that are coming up here soon in the fall. That's what we're going to start to tilt the training towards. We're maybe not quite in the peak of that, and we're not going to go full bore on any of those particular race distances, but we're absolutely going to start pivoting towards those energy zones. Don't worry, for our speed lovers out there, we will come back at the end of the fall season. Naturally, going into the winter and our off season, we're going to absolutely deep dive back into some of the short and fast work. We'll find some of that off season efficiency and gains there. So now let's talk a little bit about our week 8 workouts here. Run number 1, interval run. So as I do a lot, I like to especially come to the close of a challenge to kind of go back to a week 1 workout and check in. So there are a couple things we do here at the end of challenges, right? We potentially retest to try to see, did we make progress over the course of the 8 weeks? How do things feel now versus 8 weeks ago? So you can do that in a 20-minute distance test for sure. You can also do that by running a workout that you've done before and seeing if it feels a little bit different. You might hardly even remember it. It's been 8 weeks. But this is a good opportunity to see how you feel, compare metrics to some of the previous workout, and also based upon the way that we've accumulated training stress over the course of 8 weeks, this one is really taking a step back. So while we're still providing a little bit of stimulus, we're doing some pace to stay sharp, especially to stay crisp and ready for that 20-minute test. It's going to be quite a step down in terms of training stimulus here. Run number 2, our endurance run plus strides. So workout many of you have done many times. We're trying to dial it back. We're going to keep those strides on the tail end of this thing just to kind of, keep our rhythm, push intensity for just a tiny little bit, a few seconds there to kind of stay connected to that pace if we're testing, especially on the weekend. This is really about staying active. Do not want to overdo it here. We're just trying to prevent any sort of detraining effect. Key workout number 3. We're going to have 2 options here. We have our 20-minute test, which the idea here is quite simple. We want to repeat the process of week 1, and the goal is just to be a little bit better than last time. So just a reminder, this doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest, best 20-minute effort of your life. Really, our objective at the top and our objective now was just to be a little bit better than before. So what a noble pursuit. Option B is I'd be very interested. Sometimes if the 20-minute test just isn't going to happen, you're sick of testing, don't care about your progress. All those things are relevant at some point in time. Sometimes I just want to see if you can go a little bit further than you did before. So option B is to kind of do your longest endurance run of the challenge. Doing your longest run in 8 weeks is also a very cool thing. And I think I'd be interesting to see what the consistency of 8 weeks of steady training really looks like when you try to just go a little bit further there. So option B is your longest run of the challenge endurance run. Going to jump into a couple questions here that came up over the week. So question one is a two-part question. So 2 questions. Number 1, if we want to test but also want to continue with our Saturday long runs, because we're planning on an early fall, late summer half, can we substitute run 1 or 2 for the test run and keep run 3 for the long run? So yes is the short answer of this. I'll do a couple quick options here. Before I do it, maybe let's talk about, I think this is a very relevant question because many people have started training blocks for fall half marathons, for fall marathons, for fall other races that require lengthy long runs. And I think runners at all levels are faced with this a lot, where if you're running a 5K on a Saturday morning, you don't necessarily want to give up your long run that week. So you have to kind of figure out a way to fit it in around. So I'm going to kind of talk about maybe two kind of easy options here. And that first option is to keep the Monday workout, test on Wednesday, and then Saturday long run. That's especially if you're only doing 3 runs a week, that's sort of the best option probably there. Option B, if maybe you're doing at least 4 runs a week, be Monday's the same, Wednesday stays easy, so Wednesday the same, Saturday test, Sunday long run. So in essence, put that test on Saturday. Maybe that's the day that you traditionally did your long run. Do that long run after. Don't want to do the long run and then the 20-minute test the next day because you're going to come in quite fatigued. If you come in fatigued to your long run from the test, that's no problem. You just slow the pace down a little bit, take it easy. That run might just be a little bit slower, minute per mile, no problem. At this point of most marathon processes, it's really about accumulating time on your feet, keeping the effort light. And if you just need to slow down a little bit to do that, no problem. That is great. Part 2. If we're planning on an early September half, what training plan would you recommend we follow after this 8-week challenge? And can we sign up for a training plan with a start date in the past so that we dive in mid-training? So there are currently 3 half marathon plans in our All Access library. You can backdate them as much as 4 to 5, I think 4, but maybe even 5 weeks prior. So those plans are currently 12 weeks and should work for that timeline. I'm going to also go ahead and shift our 2023 half marathon challenge plan, which was a 10-week program, into the All Access library here in the upcoming week. So for those who used and enjoyed that kind of program in the past, it will be available for you to use again. And if you wanted to experience it for the first time on your own time, that program will be available as of this upcoming week for fall half marathons. The nice thing about that is there's a ready-made custom strength program designed by Team Wilper's strength trainer Ava Fagan to go along with that to maximize that training. So look out for that coming in the All Access library here in the days to follow. I'll even drop a little note or a post on the Facebook group to let people know that it's active for signups. Much like the 2024 marathon plan that went recently up onto the All Access library, that plan is a time-based plan with a little bit of distance. We had distance-based long runs, time-based midweek. So for people familiar with the challenge infrastructure and time-based workouts, that plan is going to be very similar to what we're doing here. Next question. I'm working on my glutes in the gym and feel sore from the DOM, which delayed onset muscle fatigue for those not familiar. Do I keep running or do I wait for the soreness to go away, especially for the second run of the week that needs some speed? If I wait, it messes up the rest of the schedule. If I try to run, I worry I won't have enough power in those muscles to do VO2 max and up. So it depends a little bit here. However, and I'll elaborate in a moment, you have to keep running, especially if the run is your objective. The run or priority A workouts and strength, which are incredibly important, are going to remain priority B workouts. If you're completely exhausted from the strength, then absolutely do not run. That is, possibility to, opens the door for injury. So the most important step, and we'll talk about it here, is to not do a strength training session that's going to completely exhaust you, especially if you're in the middle of a run training block, especially if you're trying to add volume, add intensity, etc. So a few things to consider here. When is the peak soreness after your training session? And working with a lot of athletes over many years now, some people tend to be sore immediately within 24 hours. So that next 24 hours is really hard. And then sometimes it will be 48 hours later, where someone really hits that peak soreness 48 hours later. When you kind of know that about yourself, you can start to adjust your training schedule a little bit. And maybe you want that strength training session, instead of a single day ahead of your key workout, to be 2 days ahead of your key workout. And or you need to shift our structure is Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. If you are strength training on Tuesday and Wednesday, you're sore as hell, maybe it needs to be a Monday workout and a Thursday key workout on the runs, so that you have that 2 days to recover. Maybe do something super easy, like a little run, something supplementary, like some cycling or elliptical time on that day after the strength training session, and give yourself an extra 24 hours to recover before the next time. Or you just kind of figure out, we'll talk about modifying it here a bit more now. So kind of part two to that is, I'd be curious, if I was talking to a one-on-one athlete, what does the strength training look like? How is it being structured? What's the pace of the workout? What are the reps? What are the weights that you're using there? And do you need to modify the actual structure of that workout day? So when I think about strength training for runners, I think about breaking it down into a couple of very limited guidelines, if you will. I want low rep, high intensity, high quality, which means, not lightweight, big, strong weight, and very slow, methodical movement through the process. If it becomes fast, lightweight, high repetition, that's not strength training, it's muscular endurance training, and it's a different thing. It's not particularly helpful to your running. So we want to be strength training. Once again, slow, low rep, slow pace. Those are the things that go along well with running. If you need to change the structure of your strength training to be a little bit more thoughtful to that, then you need to do that. And when you think about moving in that way, it could mean less reps, less sets, but keeping high quality. And maybe that makes you a little bit less sore going into that next run, until your body's a bit more prepared to add some of that volume back into your strength training. Final piece of the pie, and on a strength training perspective, is, there is a nutritional consideration of, this is a smaller piece than the other two, but what does your nutrition look like on lifting days? Absolutely, there's a higher protein demand. That protein can come from a ton of different sources, but you do need to be replenishing your body after those sessions. The timing is not quite as thoughtful as carbohydrate intake after long endurance sessions and tough endurance sessions, but you need a higher protein intake over the course of the day. So making sure you're maximizing the recovery after the session, both on the run, strength training, etc. The workout itself is merely a stressor. 100% of the performance gain comes from maximizing the recovery. So are you maximizing the recovery part of it? So I do strongly recommend all athletes keeping a consistent strength training schedule with their sport training. It's a great way to train a little bit differently, to train evenly. When we think about running, we're very rarely even. We're on our left leg, we're on our right leg. Very rarely are those legs symmetrical in terms of their power, their stability, their mobility, etc. Strength training is one of our greatest opportunities to work symmetrically there. It's very unusual to do a curl with 10 pounds and a right arm curl with 15. So we get to really balance ourselves out. So I would absolutely encourage you to work through this, keep it as a consistent part of your routine. And if you can't figure it out, let us do it for you and use some of Ava and Ryan's curated programs that they've created to go along with some of our programming here as well. Otherwise, that is all for week 8. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Congratulations on approaching the end of another challenge, and we can't wait to see you finish this one up strong and be back for the end of summer challenge here in a couple weeks. Have an amazing Friday night and great weekend.